Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, tmosso@the1916company.com for all of your purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. And you should concern yourself with this Vacheron Constantin Malte Tourbillon, a model launched in 2000. You can see the example in my hand was retailed in 2001. This marked Vacheron's coming out party as a movement manufacturer, and it may be a surprise to learn that a company founded in 1755 and the oldest continuously operating Swiss watchmaker would not have been known as a manufacturer until the 21st century, but it is a fact. Vacheron, as the oldest of the Holy Trinity, was long known as Switzerland's greatest établisseur, specifying the parts, sourcing them from the best suppliers, and then assembling them under its own roof. Well, Vacheron, during the 1990s, decided to become a manufacturer, and it bought manufacturer haut de gamme out of the Valet de Jeu to help it with its first full in-house caliber, 1790 in this watch. So now we'll talk about that in a moment, but let's talk about the watch itself. 36 millimeters wide, I'm not going to call it diameter, that's a measurement not including the crown. The watch is 12.3 millimeters thick, and then from lug tip to lug tip, it is 47.9 millimeters, so it's actually quite short across the wrist. But what I want to advise is that in addition to being 19 millimeters between the lugs, the watch is actually going to wear a little bit larger. So you hear 47.9 millimeters across the wrist, and you might think, well, that's not that big, and 36 millimeters, it almost sounds like a Datejust. But the fact is, every non-round watch wears a little bit larger than its rated size. So though rated at 36, I encourage you to think about it for sizing purposes as a 40 millimeter round watch, and that is how it fits. My wrist is 16 centimeters circumference. You can see down the barrel, I've got quite a bit of clearance on each side of my wrist, so your 14 centimeter wrist is still a go right here. Taking a look in profile, it is sloped. It's fairly thin. It'll slide under a dress cuff, and then this over-the-top angle always exaggerates the width of the watch, especially when I'm pulling a strap tight for demonstration purposes. Now, while this is a perfectly presentable alligator leather strap, you could see that it is also a fake alligator leather strap, as oftentimes when we're shipping from our Swiss offices to the US or our East Asian offices to the United States, we are always cognizant of CITES treaties, and so we will fit genuine Jean Rousseau handmade straps, albeit in synthetic materials. Now, it looks real, it feels real, and I'm going to say this. This is the OEM supplier of straps to FP Journe, de Bethune, and others. So I would not write off this strap. Obviously, we will at no charge give you genuine alligator leather if you buy this watch. But I would actually encourage you to keep this strap because it looks the business, it feels good, it will never wear down, sweat and moisture will have no impact on it, and it will be eternal. And if you are a greenie or you love animals, I know gators are a little bit hard to love, but you will spare them by keeping this strap on the watch. The buckle, simple. Pin buckle, Vacheron's Maltese cross logo, all polished on the bottom. You can see it says Unrock, which is the buckle manufacturer, Cornu, spelled backwards. Rolling around, I've long said that Vacheron doesn't really have one enduring iconic watch. Some people say the 1921 American, but that's a mishmash of two watches made in the early 20th century, and it was only reintroduced in the middle 2000s. So for me, the real enduring Vacheron design signature is not something like the Royal Oak or the Reverso or the Submariner. It's dramatic and memorable lug designs, and they're never the same twice, and they span eras, but Vacheron has always been one for memorable and striking lug profiles, and that continues here. We have a little bit of a tiered profile. They're very short, squared off, stubby, but powerful. You can see they're visibly broken from the curvature of the case. They have their own sculptural presence. The case band is rounded, everything's polished. We have the Maltese cross on the crown. We also have a little pusher adjuster for the pointer style date. The bezel stands proud of the case. It has the same roughly tonneau profile. The crystal over the dial is both vaulted from end to end and then shaped. So this is a very complex crystal to make water resistant and fit. And that is just the beginning of it. First, the dial, genuine rose-lay the guilloche, cut reductively. It's the good stuff. It is in no way stamped. Then at the bottom, you can see this is one of the last of the Vacheron Sigma dials. Of course, this model coming out in 2000, this example retailed in 2001. The Sigma dial, as it's often called, was created by the Swiss watch industry, and they were called a priori marks in the early 70s when they originated after the Swiss Precious Metals Trade Association that encouraged watchmakers to advertise the use of real gold on dials, and that little sigma-like shape flanking Swiss and made is what those looked like. Vacheron was one of the last to stop using this signature in the very early 2000s. So having the Sigma dial just boosts the desirability of this watch. So a lovely sunray guilloche. If you take a look at the brushed sunburst center of the dial, you can see that the imaginary origin point is actually over the tourbillon. It's not underneath the hands, which makes it a bit different from most sunbursts. The hands are broadsword style and half satinated for better contrast against the dial base. Power reserve indicator, power reserve is 40 hours haut et bas, full and empty. We have polished solid gold individual hour indices, and then a pointer style date with a blue 31 and a little concentric pattern on its track. Lots of attention to detail, nowhere more than the balance bridge. The upper bridge for this tourbillon, I guess we're not going to call it a balance bridge, it's a tourbillon bridge, but this upper bridge required 11 hours of work to round off, taper, and polish. Everything from diamond paste to lapping paper to buffs used to create a perfectly rounded and mirror-finished surface, the likes of which you'll see on only the very finest watches ever made. It is a work of art in its own right. Now, the tourbillon is a 1-minute tourbillon beating at 18,000 vibrations per hour, so we have this little rose gold extension that allows the tourbillon to act as the seconds hand for the dial. And then you can see it's placed opposite of the regulator index. These two things in terms of mass counterbalance each other. And the tourbillon cage itself is a work of art. You can see it is in the shape of the Maltese cross, the logo of the company, and that it has been mirror polished across its top, but interior and exterior beveled. And it's those interior bevels where they meet in sharp creases. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are a lot of Geneva seal movements in the world that don't have a single inward creased bevel. This watch has almost too many to count. You're going to see more. All screw heads are black polished with chamfered slots and circumference. We've got an overcoil hairspring which centers the mass of the hairspring. So this tourbillon has chronometric intent, not simply aesthetic purpose. Very few wristwatch tourbillon are good timekeepers. This one is. It also, in addition to the overcoil, features multi-position adjustment as well as to temperatures. Like most tourbillon regulators, it is fairly loud, so you can hear it, and it has a pronounced heartbeat. So in a quiet room, you can actually hear this watch. Rotating it over, this is all 30 meters water resistant. Don't test the theory, but it is 30 meters water resistant. You can see the city of origin engraved, along with the name of the company, and that is hand engraving right there with a burin. That's not done by a drill or a laser of any kind. And behold, caliber 1790. Now, Vacheron had been involved in movement development before. For example, they collaborated with a Lecoultre on the caliber 480 during the 50s. But in terms of making something from start to finish, very uncommon in its history. It bought manufacture haut de gamme in the Vallée de Joux during the 1990s as it prepared to launch this caliber 1790. As a result, the earliest examples were actually made and finished in the Vallée de Joux, which is why this eye-watering finish doesn't include the Geneva hallmark. You can only get that if the movement is built and finished in the city or canton of Geneva. So if you're wondering where it is, this more than meets the standard. It exceeds them in every way. It's just built in the wrong part of Switzerland. Now, taking a look at some of what you get here, of course, the 40-hour power reserve via a single barrel, and you can see that barrel features a solarized barrel cap and a black polished ratchet wheel. All of the wheels of the train are satinated, and if you look carefully, you can see that they are interior beveled, very difficult to do. We have two different sizes of adjacent pegwood engine-turned perlage. Note the use of abrasive wheel stripes at an unconventional diagonal relative to the vertical of the caseback, and that because Vacheron was designing this watch with manufacturer haut de gamme specifically for this model, both the size and the shape of this movement are a hand and glove fit for the case. Now take a look at all of the jewel and screw sinks. They feature a mirrored partridge eye inner bevel. All of the bridges feature a true rounded and mirrored bevel. Ain't no machine milling going on here. That is all finished off probably with gentian wood. We also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 super sharp angles where bevels come to a cleft crease, one of the most difficult challenges for a movement finisher. Now, not only are these screw heads black polished and their slots and circumference chamfered, but if you were to screw one out and take a look at the bottom of its threaded stalk, the pilot or the end tip would also be mirror finished. This is a watch that exhausts the superlatives. If you love it, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.